The Pastor Chris Okafor and Doris Ogala fracas is something I'm not happy with because I am married. I'll do the summary of the case if you are just hearing about it, but it is going to create a lot of doubt in the mind of married people, especially with how they use their phones. Now, for context sake, Pastor Chris Okafor is a pastor who was divorced. Doris Ogala is an actress who fell in love with the pastor and they met somewhere after the pastor was divorced. The longer short here is every single person has who they were dating before they meet the person they want to marry. But in between, the ex of this Doris Ogala, who they met in 2012, was always on her. The reason why they were not together when she started dating Pastor Chris was because the ex usually beat her even as a boyfriend. So it's like when she beats you, you go away, and then she begs you, you come back, and that back and forth was going through till about 2019 when the family prevailed on her to get married, and Pastor Chris said he wasn't ready to get married to her. Hence, Pastor Chris, in a relationship with this Doris, left her to go and marry the ex, who she said confirmed she doesn't love, but because the family were pressurizing on her, had to marry him. Now, my job here is not to criticize what is happening. I'm an angel who bring good tidings. But what I want you to note here going forward is, if you are a lady, don't ever be pressurized to the point you're going to marry someone you do not love. You see, in reality, money is good, marriage is good. You see, that Friday, Saturday celebration is good. But what happens after it is enormous. What happens after it is a lot of heartbreak that you might not recover from if you continue. So let me continue with the story, because after that, even when she was in her husband's house, so to say now, she kept communicating with the Pastor Chris, who she had already been intimate with, and every other thing has gone on in the other room, even as a pastor, which is another thing, because legitimately, if you are a pastor and you actually are divorced and you want to marry a new person, you shouldn't be introducing the other room if you are dating. What I know is most people think being a Christian profits God, instead of them to know that being a Christian profits them. You can imagine if this Pastor Chris dated this Doris girl without any sexual intercourse. You see, this story would have been a little balanced, and that's why if you stay out of sin, either in your relationship or in your regular life, it will save you more than you can imagine. Because as a pastor, people are going to roast this pastor because you are having all other intimate sections with this girl. To the point that even when the lady was married in her husband's house, she was still sending you sexual videos and you are still having phone sex together. So you see how bad it is on the pastor side. But like I said, my job is to tell you going forward, if you're a child of God and you're in a relationship or anything that has to do with a woman, remember Adam is on this table. Remember, Samson is on this table, and a whole lot of people who, if you are not careful by playing by the rule of divinity, you might be in more trouble than you estimated just by following sin in your relationship. So anyway, the lady now had to end a relationship with the ex-husband now. Remember, ex-boyfriend who beats you, you are running away. You had a new relationship with the Pastor Chris, but now your parents pressurized you to going back to the ex because he's, like she said, she was buying you gifts and all of that. And now you're in a relationship you don't want. So while you are still in that marriage, you are still engaging with your new ex, which is the Pastor Chris. And at the end of it all, the ex-husband now got a lady pregnant. And that's another insult upon injury. The world are turned upside down. Most men are no longer recognizing that the only matrimony that you sign into in marriage is sacred. It's just like we are just having relationships for relationship's sake. How are you a married man and you are getting another girl pregnant right in between? Just today I was hearing about how Mercy Johnson's husband also got another girl pregnant. What is wrong with the men of this generation? Or is it like they are just trying to do polygamy while still practicing monogamy? That's something else that I will discuss in another video. But I am saying life would be well done without much fracas if everybody can keep whatever they have in their pants, including the ladies. Because if somebody is getting you pregnant, you are a lady. Why are you always there to be gotten pregnant too? I believe something is wrong with this generation, both male and female. But hopefully we will get to the root of this before we collapse every entity we call family. Anyway, the deeds has been done. There are so many things about this case, about how Doris Ogala now left her husband's house because of the battering and beating, and she now had to return to dating Pastor Chris. Guess what? At that point, Pastor Chris set her up again for a business to try and get some information about another thing entirely, which involves her planting herself as somebody who wants to date another person. And she agreed. Now she said, I agree because I love Pastor Chris, and anything he asks me to do, I will do. Of course, if the person you love so much tells you to do anything, you can go ahead and do it without thinking. So from my end to Ogala Doris, I didn't really see much wrong in that. But where the wrong thing started coming up is the fact that she started demanding for some monies, which also Pastor Chris Okafor did wrongly, because if you had made a deal, be a man of your words. Like I said, I think the narrative of having fame, having material things, and also chasing after money is part of what this generation as well is struggling with. Because ideally, if you're a Christian, worldly things should not matter as much. So as a pastor or as a person, your honor should be what you say. So if you have agreed to pay a lady, even if it's your girlfriend or fiancé or whatever, or even your wife, if you have agreed to pay a certain amount of money to her based on what you sent her to do, either good or bad, then you should be there to honor the word. Do you see how many mistakes human being makes? And then you say somebody's calling you out or somebody is reacting negatively. Oh, some people are saying, is it like love is bad or marriage is bad? No, marriage is not bad. Love is not bad. It's the people that are personnel playing out in these things that are making it bad. Because if you have paid the girl what you promised to pay, this will not have happened. Why are you setting up your girl to go and do an ally job with somebody you are trying to crush? What's that? She might be caught up in the web. Probably she had gone to sleep with the person as well, since she's open to sleeping with whoever or whatever she's in a relationship with, just in a bid to impress you. Why are you doing that? That's not what a human being of dignity and honor should do. And Pastor Chris Okafor is saying, go ahead and do this. So you see, the problem is in the personnel acting towards what they are doing, which is now what makes the whole thing bad. And now Doris Ogala is saying you cannot marry another woman, because that's where this problem erupted from again. This is the third time she's coming to call out this man of God, because every time something happens, she gets angry and she's like, no, I no go agree. Because this time around, if you go ahead and marry another girl, what about the promises you told me? What about when you asked me to leave my husband's house because he was molesting me, and you said with a promise that you're going to marry me? Of course, I also see that as trying to make you take a safe decision. Because if Pastor Chris Okafor loves you in truth, he might tell you to leave that place and he will marry you because he wants you to leave, so you will not die in a house where they are beating you and hitting you every day. There were reports that allegedly that the ex-husband hit her to a point she was bleeding from her nose and all of that. I'm thinking, if you are in your husband's house for about 2 years or 3 years, you should have given birth to a child. I didn't hear any report about any childbirth in between. Maybe I missed that. But by and large, what I'm going to say here is, if you are not ready to be truthful in relationships, stop going into one. If you are not ready to honor your words in a relationship, stop going into one. Let's say you are in a relationship, and after you have started the whole process, you now hit a roadblock. Probably something came over you, or another girl swept you off your feet, or another guy swept you off your feet. Please have a good heart enough to be able to apologize to whoever you have offended, and don't make it look normal. Breaking someone's heart is not normal. I believe you don't want your heart to be broken if you really love someone, so stop breaking people's hearts. Honor your word as a man. Honor your words as a woman, and that will make a world a better place than all we have, because the younger generations are online and everyone is looking. If the pastor and older generations and actress is doing this, what do you think will become of people who are already following Pella kind of life? You can see Pella is doing the same. Jarvis is there as well. The younger generations are not learning well from the older ones, and that is what I call for calm. Let them try and resolve these, and by resolve I mean, if a man had moved on, even if it is painful, pray that God will give you another man that will appreciate you and love you, because it looks like you have lost this love. And I'm speaking about Doris Ogala now. That means this love is gone. You can't force to have love. It's unfortunate, But I feel the best way here is to move on. And by the way, I heard she was saying that a man has to buy her a house. I don't know how true that is. So I believe you are not just trying to peddle one or two things, but even whatever the case, even as the man, if you can afford that, even if not the whole house, if it is the boys' quarters, that's a joke, but get her something just to appease her, and then you move on. Plus, I heard he has already appeased out of court at some point, and the lady is coming back again. The reality is, if you are going to be a successful man and you can feel and you're working towards that, be careful of the women that you roll with. And I say, and when I mean be careful, I'm not saying be careful about women, because you can never be careful of a woman. You only have to choose one and stay with that one. That's how to be careful. If I tell you be careful about woman, don't think you can have your way. No, you cannot. Just choose one and stay by that one. That's how to be careful. Any other thing will run you down, especially if you are a success. Remember, if Pastor Chris Okafor is an Okada rider, this woman will not say, come and buy me a car, or because you want to get married. She would have said, oh, thank God I dodged a bullet. But now, if you're a successful man, of course, they will hold you accountable because they know you can afford things. Now, for people who are holding a position in the house of God, please be careful about what you do, because you are a lamp that shines brightly to a lot of people's feet. Do not cause darkness to them. I can imagine how many people are going to be sad about scenarios like this. Of course, you might end up saying they are rumors, but we don't want to keep listening to rumors like these from pastors. Remember, if it was Wizkid or Burna Boy that has this, nobody would even care, because we know what they are shining their lights to. But for you that are shining your light based on divinity, you should be careful, so lots of people will not fall because of your sake. The angel of light will visit you before the week runs out. Let me hear you say amen.